And good morning. It is time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. Man, you gotta love the sunshine, Mike.
You really do. He's a whole new guy. Have you noticed that lately?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Brian Thomas is on it. I'm telling you, folks. Listen, good morning, West Michigan, and thanks for tuning us in. We've got a couple different folks we're going to go through today, but I want to start out with an old friend of mine and a fellow that's been a guest on the show a number of times, although it's been a while. Saul Anuzis, welcome back to the Mike Hewitt Show.
Hey, great to be with you, Mike.
Saul, it's great to have you on. Listen, you're working on a new project, and I'm wanting you to tell everybody about it. But before I do, I got to tell folks a little bit about you, because, in fact, we were talking about you here in the studio in between shows. When you were chair of the Michigan State Republican Party, you know, every chair that's come and gone, we get to say we like this about him or didn't like that about him, and you know how the political world goes. But one of the things that I would say probably is your chief, the thing I got from you the most was your ability and your constant pursuit of communicating to grassroots. And the reason I bring that up now is when you start telling us about Saul's newsstand, I want folks to understand that that's probably your, if you have a forte, it's communication. So I was really glad to see you launch this. Now, tell us a little bit, what is it?
Well, as you well know, I mean, since I was chairman back in 2005, so now for over 10 years, I've been a big believer that in order for the grassroots to be empowered, for the grassroots to get involved and engaged, they have to be informed. And so, when I started out, I was the first chairman in the country to write his own blog, to post his own tweets, to actually have a newsletter that back then I used to put out daily. Now I have one that goes out every Sunday, kind of with a summary of news. And so I've been, consistently, believing that for conservatives, libertarian-leaning type conservatives, in order to be a better activist, better involved, to have a say in the process, you have to understand what's going on. So finally, I've done it in a number of different ways, and I kind of brought it all together and created what is now Saul's Newsstand. And it's basically just www.sauls, S-A-U-L-S, no apostrophe, newsstand.com. And what we're doing there is every day, I'm basically trying to kind of be a mini Drudge type without all the pop culture and without the movie star distractions, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be all politics all day, updated throughout the day, anywhere from 20 to 50 of the top political stories from the obvious sources of, let's say, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Politico, and then trying to go to a little more obscure and not as often read periodicals like The Atlantic or American Spectator or The Federalist, so that conservative activists have an opportunity to go to one place on a regular basis, check in, and you'll get all the political news you want and probably more than you want, but it's all there in one spot that you can very easily, quickly look at in an aggregated and curated manner.
Tell me this, Saul, and this is my critique of the Drudge Report, so folks that love the Drudge Report, bear with me for a moment. But and by the way, let me preface it by saying I've followed the Drudge Report for the last 12 years or so. It's been one of the daily sources I've gone to. Having said that, I think Matt Drudge made a mistake when he turned himself entirely into what I perceived as a campaign outlet for one of the candidates in a very crowded field. And I bring that up because and by the way, I'm still cheering him on. I hope he gets beyond that. But to me, to call it a news source is relevant to all of the folks, not just some of them. And so I say that knowing you, because when I've scanned your newsstand the last several days, I've not seen any kind of bias in it, other than the fact that it most certainly is conservative. Is that a fair statement, isn't it?
I think that is a fair statement. Look, I think there was a tremendous amount of frustration by conservatives in particular during the primary because Drudge became a Trump supporter and very openly and very aggressively was pitching Trump stories. And so I think a lot of conservatives got frustrated with Drudge. And it was interesting because before that happened, I was actually in the process of putting this together. And then, as you know, the Cruz campaign asked me to come help them. And I basically was in Houston every week, for the last 5-6 months. And so I kind of put this on hold. And when I came back, I think, the timing couldn't have been better because it really provided an alternative. Look, there's going to be articles on there that are from a liberal perspective. There are going to be articles that are about Democrats because it's important that people know about everything that's going on. As you mentioned, my bias will be conservative, maybe a little more libertarian than some people have traditionally seen, because I do think that we're a center-right coalition. We've got to bring our party together, and whether it's kind of the Christian right, the traditional conservative right, the libertarian right, we share a certain degree of values that are obviously better than anything Hillary Clinton's going to offer us. And so we need to have as much information as possible, theoretically unbiased from the standpoint of not backing one position or another, but informing and engaging people so that when we do have the debates, I mean, look, we win because of ideas.
Right.
The conservatives are, if we can't battle on ideas, we're not going to win. And so we need to be better informed, and that's what Saul's Newsstand is all about.
Listen, I think it does. And by the way, folks, on that note, let me take just a second to let everyone know who you're talking to. We've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky, who sometimes we call him Matt Wiedenhoeft. Pax is on hand, although I don't think he's paying attention, and Brian Thomas is keeping us on path. On the line with us is our co-host Miles Bauer from the great state of Illinois. I think I was queued up to say Chicago, not just Illinois. So, gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. When I'm scanning down the Saul's Newsstand, I'm looking at it right now. By the way, it works very nicely on my iPad and my iPhone, so I want to compliment you there. So often this stuff doesn't. This does perfectly. The very first thing I saw, though, was Hillary. I went, why am I looking at this? Stop that, Saul. But to your point, it is news.
It's what's happening today.
Yeah,
Mike, it was funny because I actually received a couple comments this morning. What have you turned into a Democrat? Just because I posted the fact that Hillary won the nomination.
Sure.
The reality is we are going to be running a historical campaign when first time a woman has won a party's nomination. And I think that that's something that we have to be aware of. We're going to have to respond to. We're going to have to answer to. And be ready to say it is relevant. It was relevant that we elected the first black president. Those aren't bad things. Those are just facts. Those are the news. And again, my goal is to give people information. It's a discerning audience. In the first 2 weeks, we've only launched literally 2 weeks ago. Thousands of people have hit the page, have looked at it, have been coming back on a daily basis. This is the kind of thing it's very mobile phone app ready. It's iPad ready, as you mentioned, on a PC and a Mac, you name it. And we're still updating it and cleaning it up and improving it as we get experience with it. But it's going to be, I hope, a mini Drudge without the distractions of pop culture and movie stars. And I'm going to do my best not to become a single candidate focus. But this is getting down to Trump versus Hillary. Those are going to be the battles. That's where going to be most of the stories are going to be about. But again, I think you're going to find a very good source for a broad base of stories. It's something, I hope people make as a homepage eventually. I think it's going to become, it could become a Drudge alternative for conservatives, and that's really what my goal is.
Let me ask you on one of the points you made along that. You, as you identified there, that you did go to work for the Cruz campaign. So one of the things we're hearing a lot lately is there going to be unification? I think there is going to be unification, but I'm wondering with a fellow that got as invested into the Cruz camp as you were, are you on the Trump train now, or where are you at with this, Saul?
Well, I agree there's going to be unity. Look, I want to, and I plan on supporting our nominee. And that's kind of a disclaimer saying that, I'm not very comfortable with Donald Trump yet. I believe, he was a populist leftist a year ago. He's a populist conservative today. And my concern is, where is he going to be tomorrow?
Right.
Having said that, he's going to be 100 times better than Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
I think the fact that he laid out who he's going to appoint for the federal judges was very important. It made me much more comfortable. I think the fact that, Newt Gingrich is one of his top options as a vice presidential candidate makes me much more comfortable. I think the fact that he went down to the NRA and obviously talked to Wayne LaPierre and talked to the board members and made commitments where he was able to get their, outright enthusiastic endorsement made me much more comfortable. So as he moves towards those positions, I'm going to feel better and better about that. But at the same time, this is the kind of thing that takes time.
Sure.
It's his responsibility to unite the party. It's his responsibility to bring the party together.
Right.
And I think he can't take kind of an arrogant position of saying, hey, everybody ought to be there, because you got to earn our votes. You got to earn everybody's votes.
I think to your comments, though, he realizes that. Just a little caveat or inset. Miles Bauer has been as he refers to himself, as a Trump publican, and he's of course the co-host of the show. And so one of the things, and I was a cruise guy, by the way, as you're probably aware, Saul.
Yep.
One of the things, though, that it's having the combination of Miles and I on the show, with Matt Wiedenhoeft seemingly taking both sides along the path.
I'm a crumper.
Yeah. But one of the things I've gotten out of that, all seriously, is that when we get into we're supporting candidate X, I think over the course of a long campaign, you end up in bunker mentality. And so you only see the things about another candidate that feed what you already believe. One of the things that Miles was instrumental in doing is getting me to move away from the sound bites that are rolled out by the general media. Even before that, by the way, I'd went on a crusade to look up old comments, and it goes to your comment about him being a leftist a year ago. And the reality of it is that the more I dug, the more I found he's very, very consistent, going back at least to 1988. And I wouldn't have admitted to that to Miles 2 months ago, but I've done it, and that's the truth of it. So it's been surprising. So what I guess I'm proposing is that some folks have taken some contacts, some comments of his along the path, and have used them as part of what we just do in campaigns. But I don't know that what we've been led to believe about him has been a consistent who he's been. So at any rate, the bottom line for me is exactly what you said. When I compare the two, there is absolutely no question that I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump. When I look at her, and it's not a gender statement, but when I look at her, she's just not a president to me. So
well, I agree with you 100%, and I think we are still getting to know Donald Trump. I think the one thing the American public is ready for is for someone to shake up Washington.
Right.
And Hillary Clinton is the quintessential establishment candidate. I mean, if you want, she is part of a family dynasty that, has been problematic. She has a record that is unbelievable and distorted. I think the new ad that just came out that the Super PAC put on, if you guys haven't seen it yet, it's actually up on my, I think it's the second lead story right now. It's an excellent ad, and it lays out, how Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton's legacy is. They're willing to lie and say just about anything to get elected. Look, for all of Donald Trump's bumps and warts and concerns, he's still an independent man who is a successful businessman, who today is at least espousing and sharing our values, making us more comfortable in that regard. And as I said, my plan is to support the nominee, and I think there's no question I'm going to be voting for him. But I'm just, I'm still concerned. I want to feel better about it, and I'm looking into it, and I'm reading, and I'm glad you guys are talking about where, some of these historical facts have come from or distortions have come from, and it is just politics. But it is politics. That's the game. Again, right. That's the reason we need people to be better informed and have more information about what's going on.
Listen, Saul, we're pushed for time now, and because I've got another caller that's calling in. But what I want to have you do before you go away is tell folks one more time how do they get to your newsstand?
Yep, it's just very simple. Just go to www.sauls, SAULS, newsstand, NEWSSTAND.com. So Saul's Newsstand, again, updated all day long, throughout the day, good information. I've got a positive quote type of thing there, positive attitude issues, and then when we're going to try to do kind of a blogging predictions and gossip on politics around the country. So hopefully we'll be breaking some stories there as well.
In life, the difference between success and failure is often only an inch or two. Zig Ziglar. I'm reading that from the Saul's Newsstand, and I was a big Zig Ziglar fan. So, Saul,
you and I both.
Saul, I plan on getting you back on as we come forward through the general election, and I appreciate you joining us this morning and what you do to get this information out to folks.
Well, thank you for having me, and good luck, and thanks for all you guys do.
Very good. Thank you very much, Saul. Folks, we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mike Hewitt Show on News Talk 1090 WKBZ and Talk 1230 WTKG.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it. And this is the Mike Hewitt Show, of course. Brought to you by renegaderiver.com. All right, into segment 2 already. We are flying today.
I'm telling you, an hour just goes by way too fast. Listen, folks, if you're just tuning in, we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky and Miles Bauer, our co-hosts, along with Pax and Brian Thomas, of course, keeping us on path. On the line with us is Brian Abbas, who is an attorney, an international law and international business lawyer, I should be more specific. Along with that, he's also the Kurdistan National Assembly of Syria's Director of Public Relations. Brian, welcome to the Mike Hewitt Show.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
Hey, listen, I wanted to dive into a couple different topics from you. First off, I've had other folks on the show in the past from the Kurdistan National Assembly of Syria, and I've been trying to follow that over the last few years because, frankly, I think the Kurdish folks are the key to finding peace in the Middle East. That is my belief, and the more I've learned about it, the more I've become convinced with that position. So I wanted to touch bases with you on that, find out how that battle is going there to seek peace, and then on the other side of the topic is I wanted to find out from you what your opinion is of the United States' immigration policy. So pick one of those two topics and let's jump into it, Brian.
All right, well, let's start with the Kurds. It's an issue near and dear to my heart, and I follow it very closely. I also help out quite a bit with the Kurdish issue, being half Kurdish myself. The Kurdish issue is very complicated right now. A lot of things are going on in Syria, Iraq, Turkey, and Iran. Turkey has sort of been orchestrating U.S. politics and sort of preventing the Kurds from actually gaining the momentum to create an independent state in Kurdistan, and also to sort of help support the West. Instead, they've been doing things that have been counterproductive to U.S. foreign policy.
My understanding, Brian, is that they fear a reconstituted Kurdistan. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's a fair statement. I mean, Turkey, the modern-day Turkey was sort of carved out of the remnants of the Ottoman Empire.
Right.
And the Kurdish areas of Turkey are one of the last vestiges of the Ottoman Empire that exists today. I mean, if it weren't for the Kurdish region of Turkey, you would essentially only have a Turkish state where there would be no actual Kurds. But they've sort of overreached and claimed more than they really should have.
I think it was Shirko Abbas that put it for me in a way I could understand it. He said, imagine living on the same plot of family land for 400 years and being considered an illegal immigrant.
Yes.
It was, and so the next time I had him on, by the way, I brought maps in for me to understand what I was looking at with overlays of the Ottoman Empire and what we're seeing now, because it was the only way I could get my head around the things that he was describing. Him both along with General Adino, because both of them are so well versed in this. What I find perplexing is that the United States government during the Bush administration appears to have been helping with what I consider to be positive actions with Kurdish. And then under the Obama administration, it looks like, from an outsider looking in, like the door has been slammed in the Kurds' face. Again, am I seeing that correctly?
I would say you're exactly seeing that correctly. I have a lot of friends that are actual Turks. They're not Kurdish in any way. They're actual Turks. And a lot of them support the Kurds. A lot of them have Kurdish friends. They've helped support the HDP, which is a Kurdish party, but it's a moderate Kurdish party, and it was seen as sort of a viable and friendly alternative to the ruling AKP party, the Erdogan's party in Turkey. And if you asked if you would have asked a Turk, and if you still ask a Turk, probably within the past couple of years, whether or not there would be a free and independent Kurdistan, they would say yes, that, things were sort of headed that direction.
Right.
And originally it was going to happen on friendly terms because the Turks sort of were interacting a lot with the Kurds, and it seemed like if there was going to be a breakaway, it would be a very friendly breakaway. And now, under Obama, everything's just sort of been boondoggles, and everything's upside down all across the Middle East.
What seems fascinating to me, the more I got to learn of the topic, I'm still by far an outside layman, but the more I've learned is some of the, of course, most, not all, but most Kurdish folks are Muslim. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's a fair statement.
Now, but here's the part I wanted. The reason I'm bringing that up is for listeners, certainly more than you. But the first couple times I had Sherko on, I'm seeing pictures of him working with a whole bunch of different Jewish folks from Israel, and I said,
yes.
Wait a minute. Now there's a little bit of there's a disconnect between what the American people are led to believe and what I'm seeing with my eyeballs. There was a disconnect. And then I got to looking, you're absolutely right, of course. And then I got to looking closer at the Kurdistan National Assembly of Syria's platform, if you will. And I joked Sherko because I said it looks like Thomas Jefferson wrote it. It literally, folks, it does. It talks about freedom of religion. It talks about freedom of expression and for local sovereign control. These are the things that are fundamentals to building more countries with exceptionalism than just the United States, because it's not something that we've got genetic. It's our little secret here in America. It goes to the recipe of freedoms that are exactly what the documents I read from your organization are trying to advance. So when I look back at the Obama administration, I think, why would you want to be a roadblock to this? This to me is the exact thing that the American folks should be A, taught about, and B, engaged in.
Of course, I completely agree. The U.S. has never really supported any actual independent democracies in the Middle East, except for maybe Israel. And the Kurds do have very friendly relations with Israel, and the Kurdish version of Islam is much different from other forms of Islam. During the wars against Israel, the Muslim preachers in the Kurdistan areas, they would always preach, you cannot go to war with the Israelis. The Jews are people of God. If you go to war against the Israelis, you're essentially going to war with God's chosen people, and you're not going to die and go to heaven. You're going to die and you're going to go to hell. Right. So
that's really what I got out of it. Listen, the other thing before we get too far, because I certainly want to save some time for the immigration dialogue. But before I move on, I've got to pause and make a comment about the Peshmerga. What a fighting force those folks are. I'm talking about heart. Some of the fellas that come and go from Renegade River were veterans during the Iraq push and so forth, and talked about working and fighting side by side with Peshmerga. And they talked, they were just overwhelmed by the sheer resilience and unwilling to stop. They would go forward no matter what. And so I got kind of excited while I was having that little education lesson in my shop and got doing some research on it. And wow, what an absolute truth that is. So if I were the United States and said, who would I want as my ally in the Middle East? We could pick the folks that are Jeffersonian in politics, that are tremendous fighters, that are not actively trying to fight, they're defending themselves, or we could pick all the rest of them. To me, this is a no-brainer, Brian.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can't understand for the life of me why we keep supporting theocratic dictatorships in the Middle East when we should be supporting freedom. That's what the whole Arab Spring was about freedom. Then I got warped into this crazy sort of and hijacked by the Islamists, and now it turned into a boondoggle. Yeah,
but domestically, here in the United States, domestically, the Arab Spring was about democratic campaign contributions. It had absolutely nothing to do with saving anybody or bringing Jeffersonian politics to the Middle East. Absolutely nothing to do with anything that you and I could find to agree or disagree on. They were serving their own agendas. So that's my feeling. Listen, before we run out of time, though, tell me your view as a practicing lawyer in immigration. What do you think? Where do you think our current stand is with the immigration laws that we've got on the books?
I think our immigration laws on the books they're pretty crazy. They do quite a bit to sort of help illegal immigrants that come here, but when people try to come here legally through legal immigration, the door is sort of slammed in their face. I mean, I know plenty of people that are wealthy businessmen from overseas that want to try to come here to the U.S. to contribute to society. I mean, like you said, the Kurds have Jeffersonian-type idealism, which a lot of them gain by studying, Western culture, and a lot of them want to come here to the U.S. because they want to be contributing Americans. But you have, under current U.S. immigration policy, somebody who comes here illegally, breaks the law to come here. They have a much easier time staying here in the U.S. than somebody who wants to come here legally and be a, fully functioning member of society, which I think...
Let me put you on the spot for a minute. First off, you are a U.S. citizen, correct?
Correct.
Okay, therefore you'll be voting in the general election. And
yes.
So, and you can tell me it's none of my business, but who are you going to be voting for, Brian?
With the type of stuff I do, I can't really say. I'm just really hoping.
Sorry, Brian, that's what I do.
Yeah. I must say, I mean, the conventions haven't even started yet, so it's hard for me to say. However, Gary Johnson is in the office right next door at the moment, and I would love to see what kind of polling he can do in the future.
Listen, I've met Gary a number of times. I like him on a personal basis. He's fine. My problem with him is that, and by the way, I think this goes to our debate or our dialogue regarding Kurdistan. When I look at Gary Johnson's view of our southern border, he's got a big, gigantic eraser, and he thinks there ought to be no border. A nation without a border is not a nation at all. That's part one. And part two is while Rome's burning, he's talking about a joint, marijuana. Those two things take him completely out of consideration for Mike Hewitt's vote. They just do. And I'm a Jeffersonian, by the way. I don't care if you want to smoke your brains out with dope. It makes no difference to me, but don't make me pay for it. But if you want to erase our borders, now we've got a problem. I'm not interested. So as much as I like him on a personal basis, his ideology is not classical liberal. It's to me, it's Democrat. He's a Democrat now. I don't know where he's gone.
Well, to me, it's a toss-up. I mean, every candidate sort of has their flaws.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I can't wait for the conventions to be over. That way I know sort of which way the presidential election will be going.
Well, I think we can safely say that it's going to be the two major parties are going to put up Trump and they're going to put up Hillary. And in my mind's eye, a vote for one, and of course I get stoned, by the way, on this, but in my mind's eye, it's just math. A vote for a third party or an independent, to me, if you're a conservative or if you're a Jeffersonian, these are a mathematical helper for Hillary. I believe that. And so the things that I don't care about Trump about, when I compare them to the everything I don't like about Hillary, is easy math. I'm with my friend Miles on the line with us. I become a Trump-Publican. Miles, what say you? You've been quiet. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hating to be an echo chamber, but, the people have spoken. We have our two candidates. This is the choice. It's not like the three of us have not faced previous elections where we weren't necessarily satisfied with any of the candidates, and yet we still had to decide. And again, we're back in the same spot where we have been in the past. So this election, wherein it's slightly unusual, it's kind of another American election.
Well, the part that I found fascinating, and by the way, I get the fact, Brian, of what you're doing for a living, and so there's got to be a reluctance to saying one or another. But the part that I found a little bit surprising from you is that Hillary, forget what we think of her, is going to maintain the same exact foreign policy as has In fact, maybe a little bit more aggressive, but as has Obama. And so when I look at how Obama has been for the Kurds, man, that's the disconnect we were talking about. And I don't know where Trump is at on that, by the way, in agreement with you. I have no clue where he's at, but I know exactly where she's at, and that's not in favor of Kurdistan.
He'll fight with the Kurds. They just have to pay us.
Yeah.
That's really what he always says, is they have to pay us. So.
Yeah, pay. Okay. Well,
I think it's hard to sort of say where any of the candidates actually sit on any of the issues. And I mean, I think Obama's foreign policy can't continue on to another presidency. He's turned the Middle East into too big of a mess.
Right.
Really,
he has, but keep in mind that she was the foundation that put that forward. I mean, she was there for the first 4 years of this drama, and in some of the worst incidences that took place in the Middle East were at her direct approval and direction. So I'm not trying to debate you. Please don't think I'm being disrespectful. I agree that we don't know where Donald Trump is at, but there's no question where she's at, because we've watched what her actions. Forget Obama for a minute. We've watched what her actions and her comments have been. She's got a reset button for everything, and every time she hits a reset button, people die. No more of that reset button, please.
Well, I think once we start getting close to the election, we'll get a lot more of the politicians sort of nailed down on where they stand on the issues, and hopefully.
Now, you know that somewhere in the next 60 days, Brian, I'm going to be trying to get you back on to finish this dialogue. You know it. When we get past those elections, your phone's going to ring.
That's perfectly fine with me. I look forward to it.
All right, listen, we've got to go, but listen, Brian Abbas, how can folks find things on the on your Kurdistan National Assembly of Syria?
You can Google the Kurdistan National Assembly of Syria. If you're thinking about doing business in the Middle East, or you want to get in contact with me, please visit www.theabbaslawfirm.com or Facebook/The Abbas Law Firm.
Very nice. Brian Abbas, thank you very, very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mike. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Great, folks. We'll be right back.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show on News Talk 1090 WKBZ and West Michigan's Talk 1230 WTKG.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
And the Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by renegaderiver.com. And we have arrived to that point of the show where we kind of wonder, what is that coming around the bend? Oh, I know what it is. It's the Enigma Report.
It is the Enigma Report. And I have to tell you, there are some things that are an enigma so great it's beyond my ability to understand. Listen, I wrote last week on Facebook, and it's kind of pertinent to what this enigma is, so I've got to share it with you. I write, shaking my head in disgust as I listen to the media bemoan the widening gap between the two extremes. I get it. I'm a right-wing extremist, a constitutionalist, worse, an originalist. Doubling down on my extreme positions, I quote a founding father at least once per week. In the other extreme, they burn the U.S. flag while waving the flags of other countries. They assault the fabric of a very society that we're trying to live in. And they're advancing, by the way, they're advancing global Marxism while they do it. What caused me to write that was the story that was circulating about the firefighters that were flying the United States flag on the back of their fire trucks, and they were referred to as ISIS terrorists for flying the flag. And I know the story's a week old, but listen, it continues to percolate, not only just that story, but stories all across America, and we've been seeing this for the last several years, but it's something new just to the last several years, at least as far as I'm aware, where children that go to school, they've got an American flag on their T-shirt and they're sent home because it might offend somebody. And I go, what? That to me is an enigma. What's the enigma, though, by the way? To me, just so everyone understands, the enigma to me isn't that the school sends them home. It's that the parents and the citizens in total don't stand up and say enough. I don't get that. I don't. I get that there's some crazy lunatics in the school. We're going to talk about that during the Enigma Report. By the way, there are a lot of good people in school also, so I don't want to get up my gigantic wide roller when there's just a few nuts. But our society, especially the media, gives them the biggest microphone. And still the folks are going, well, yeah, he's a nut, but what can we do? Change the channel, we're going to watch American Idol or whatever else. And you go, wait a minute. This is destroying. It's having a poisoning effect on the on our American society that we live in, that we're trying to raise children in, that I'm looking and watching my 9 grandbabies grow up in. Miles, Matt, am I off the reservation with this, to use a politically incorrect term?
No, I mean, I think it kind of brings out kind of a different side to immigration. When you think about when our relatives first, quote unquote, got off of the boat, they came here with a purpose, and they were not bringing their home country's flag with them. They came here to embrace the flag and our culture and the way life was here because they saw it as opportunity. And I wonder if some of those folks that you made reference to, did they come here with different purposes than our relatives did?
One of the persons who's an administrative level person with the Grand Rapids public education system, it was a Facebook friend of mine. He puts on his page about 2 weeks ago. It's a picture of Donald Trump. And it says, and I can't give you the quote anymore, but the short of it was the rise of fascism in America. Picture of Donald Trump. So I immediately put a picture of Hillary Clinton on there, on his Facebook page, immediately following that post, and I said the rise of Stalinism in America. And then I offered, do we really need to be this shrill? I don't think so. And he unfriended me. Now we've known each other for a decade. And I wasn't trying to chastise him particularly. In fact, I was trying to roll back. I thought I was communicating, let's all of us not be so shrill. And his answer was immediately to unfriend me. Now listen, then recently, unrelated to that, I put a little quote on my Facebook page. Maybe I'm like Dave Agerman. Maybe I should leave Facebook alone. I'm just telling you. You should have seen Matt's face when I said that. I put on there, return education to the neighborhood school system, local control. Nothing else has or will ever produce better results. And 3 more teachers unfriended me. And I go, well, okay, you can unfriend me, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm correct.
Isn't it funny, though, how people run to Facebook to unfriend somebody as soon as they disagree with anything? I don't agree
with you. So, and I think, where is the arena of ideas? Where if they don't agree, they could say, no, Mike, you're wrong because of X, Y, and Z. Listen, I always listen. I always listen. It doesn't mean I may not move my position, but I've also moderated my position. Miles Bauer on the line with me is proof that I moderate my position over the Donald Trump thing. He showed me areas where I was wrong. I went, okay, I get that. And here I am on the air in 2 cities going, I was wrong. But I didn't unfriend him. I went, show me. And he showed me. Okay, so I don't get the concept. To me, it's equivalent to taking the books out in the parking lot and lighting them on fire. It is, by definition, fascism. To shut you up, your idea not to be able... It's like the folks that are at the Trump rallies. Most of them are paid. We've seen Craigslist's where they're advertising for paid protesters. That said, the concept, I don't care whether you like Trump or not. I don't care if you're going to vote for him or not. Makes no difference to me. But the idea that some folks want to shut him up is equivalent to fascism. It is. The only thing they're missing is brown shirts.
If it was happening to Hillary, I would be just as upset.
Absolutely it would. Absolutely agree with you on that. If someone went to my friend Miles and said, I don't like what you're saying, we're going to shut you down, I might not agree with his position, but I'll be beside him in arms. Going, no, that's not right. That's not American exceptionalism. But where I really wanted to take the Enigma Report is our children, because they understand what I've said a lot on this show. They understand that the philosophy, it's Abe Lincoln, the philosophy in the classroom today will be the philosophy of government in the night. And so they know that, and so they do these things, and they're little. What's the word? They're like little. They get you used to these ideas. So what? Now we're just absolutely amazed with people saying that firemen are like ISIS. Now, but next time we hear it, we're a little bit more immune to it. We're callous to it, and it becomes more normal place. And folks, that's where the devil gets into the system.
That's what I've heard is Hollywood's big on this. They'll make a movie to get people used to the idea so that when it comes to real life fruition, everybody's like, oh, it's just like the movie. It's okay now.
So when Miles and I are trying to figure out how in the heck we've got a system in Washington, D.C., where there's like this separate universe where there's no rules of Hillary. There's no rules that apply to her. None, unless you've fallen out of grace like Petraeus. And you go, wait a minute, how can... And I'm not amazed at them. I'm amazed at us for not grabbing the pitchfork and the torch and running down there and say, no, you're done, goodbye. How a person can become a congressman at $140,000 income and leave a dozen years later a millionaire. I'm not a mathematician like my friend Miles Bauer is, but that math stinks. I know that much. What do you think, Miles?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think you're kind of getting to the point of what created that which we refer to as Trump. I think had someone begun to speak about the very things you're talking about now, it would have completely turned off this whole idea of Trump. But because it was allowed to just continue to go on and on and on, and we were supposed to shut up and not fight against Washington. We were just supposed to continue along with the system and continue to keep sending these people back to Washington. It finally festered, and it finally blew up, and now we have this phenomenon called Trump.
I agree with that, but I can tell you this: we've been here on this show now for approaching 4 years. I've been in the ditches politically as grassroots for many years, and you both, all three of you know, all four of you, Pax too, know that. But what I've found in the past, and it's probably still true even with Trump, is that in the past when I've talked about these things, whether it be on the show or in my book or my second book or whatever it is I'm trying to do to communicate these concepts, we're immediately painted into the extreme right corner. And I go, no, wait a minute. By definition, I'm not in the right corner. I'm a classical liberal, by definition. Now, I know words don't matter, but where they do matter is calling a fire truck an ISIS machine is over the top. It's not acceptable. And the people of that community should immediately demand that city councilwoman resign. Immediately. You're done. Our firemen are not terrorists. And I mean, it's the classic. They're running in to drag people out of burning buildings, and our retort to them is that they're ISIS. It's over the top. We have got to stop it. And listen, I don't disagree with you at all, Miles, but Trump or anybody cannot do this on their own. It's going to take the American citizens to wake up and say enough.
Two things. 15 years ago, fire trucks blew down Manhattan with American flags flying on their truck to run into two towers that were burning, and never once would have anybody considered this terrorism. Yet today, we look at a fire truck with a flag, and now we don't have respect and admiration for it. We look at it as it could be ISIS.
Though they're they're really not after the fireman or the truck. We have to be reasonable here.
The look.
What they hate is the American flag itself and what it represents. 15
years ago, we're coming up on that 15-year anniversary.
But if I had to put
the outlook is amazing.
By the way, I absolutely agree with you. But if I put that same American flag on the back of my old rusty Jeep, they'd say there's an ISIS terrorist because of the flag, not. Because when they look at ISIS and they're waving their flags, they're equating me with my U.S. flag on the back of the Jeep to the ISIS. And you just, what kind of mind sits here and thinks this stuff up?
Have you seen the guy walking around with the expletive your flag, and he stands on the flag and videotapes people yelling and screaming at him on purpose? Like he goes outside of Trump rallies and just stands on the flag, and it's called F your flag.
Right.
And intentionally trying to provoke people.
It's no different than the people streaming out of the Trump deals where they've got black eyes and eggs in their faces, and you go, that's fascism. By definition, fascism. And so for all of these years I've been in the trenches arguing with liberals with the fact that Nazism is leftist socialism. And of course, no, it's right-wing extreme. Well, it's not. By definition, I know definitions don't matter anymore. But when you espouse a national socialism and you're willing to shut people up, that's what the Nazism was. That's what they did. That's who they were. It scares the bejeebers out of me, and it is an enigma to me that we're not up in arms, literally. Now, I'm not calling for revolution, but I'm at least saying, please wake up and pay attention. That's what I'm saying. What do you say, Miles?
Yeah, but, so some of this, I wonder if folks are actually thinking the same way you are, but
Why not?
We have been intimidated into silence because, as you recall back at the beginning of the first term of the Obama administration,
Yep.
do you remember all of the stories that came out when you opposed the policies of the Obama administration? You weren't demonstrating political dissent. You were demonstrating racism.
Sure, I'm a racism. Listen, I've got to stop you there, Miles, because we're down inside the 30-second mark, which means I've got to ask listeners to join us next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Find us on Twitter at Talk Mike Hewitt. Find us on Facebook at / The Mike Hewitt Show, and of course, the MikeHewittShow.com. I wish you folks could see Brian with his little notes, his 15 seconds, 10 seconds. I feel there now he's got the fingers going. I'm telling you, we are out of time, but I very much appreciate everyone joining us. Miles, thank you very much. Everyone here, Ludwig.